All right, so I was going to go back to this discussion of Planned Parenthood and the sort of Byzantine way in which their money flows, and this is really true of anyone who is in the healthcare business that is reimbursed by third parties, insurance. But before I do that, I do want to make this point. Unfortunately, the object in politics is to win. And candidates do whatever they think and are advised to do and their campaigns do to win, period. I don't like it because it often means that the campaigns descend into hostility, vitriolic, mudslinging attacks, as I said in the last segment, more so than policy and governing philosophy. And one of the things that I remember is then Senate Majority Leader Harry, I call him Harry, Dr. Smith from Lost in Space Reed, because he looks just like Dr. Smith. So you may recall, folks, it was in 2015, I think, leading up. Maybe it wasn't 15. It had to be before that. It was like 11. It's for the election. It was 2012. Mitt Romney challenged Barack Obama, right? And so it was Harry Reid goes to the Senate floor and basically said that Mitt Romney, he didn't pay all his taxes. He lied about it. And he was asked after Barack Obama was elected about the lies. Even the left-wing Huff Post called him out for just bald-faced lying in the Senate chamber. And you know what he said with a smug look on his face? Well, it worked, didn't it? That's all he said. The object, even if it means lying, right? The object is to win. Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, it needs to be established and understood that there's no, and I repeat, no line item in the U.S. budget, in the federal budget, that says Planned Parenthood. None. There's not a line item that says Planned Parenthood's going to get this much money. That's just false. That does not exist. That's the first thing I think that needs to be understood, because when you hear about people saying they voted for Planned Parenthood, I think the average person thinks, oh, there's a line item in the budget that says Planned Parenthood, and there's just not. That's the first thing that needs to be understood. Secondly, Planned Parenthood receives its money from four primary sources. Really, it's four sources, period. It's Medicaid, because they do deliver services that are eligible for Medicaid, such as pap smears and mammograms, et cetera. It is private insurance, although the vast majority of their patients are eligible for Medicaid, and they are reimbursed by Medicaid. The services are provided and covered by Medicaid. Private donations, huge. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, #1 donor. Okay? The fourth source of their revenue is what's called Title X. These are grants for family planning, passed in 1970, the idea of Richard Nixon. Family planning. Title X grants, okay, up until 2019 would allow, as part of family planning, counseling a pregnant mother as abortion as an option. So you got Planned Parenthood receiving Title X money, as a number of other healthcare providers as well, and they don't even have to be healthcare providers. Anybody that counsels family planning, they would get Title X money. I should point out that their budget's $1.2 billion a year. That's how much revenue Planned Parenthood receives. Mm-hmm. $60 million is Title X.
So it's a small amount.
Teeny tiny small amount. Okay? The vast majority of the money, about $500 million a year, is Medicaid. And people say, well, why are they getting Medicaid? Because the courts have ruled, and I wrote an op-ed on this 6 years ago, where I said, you know what? The same buildings, the same equipment, the same exam rooms, the same staff, the same IT systems, all the same assets that are used to provide those Medicaid-eligible services, they're also being used to provide abortions, which are not covered by Medicaid, because federal law prohibits taxpayer money from funding abortions. But they are funding indirectly the organization, if you will, at least a big chunk of it. And so you could say it's kind of subsidizing it. It's absolutely true. But I wrote an op-ed. Well, why don't you guys think about amending law and even regulations such that if an organization receives Medicaid funding for Medicaid services, that same organization can't provide abortions in the same buildings, because Planned Parenthood is one building. You go for pap smears and mammograms and other services over here, abortion over there, same building though, same people, same system, same assets. In fact, about 2 years later, Louisiana tried that. Court struck it down. Can't do it. I wrote this in 2016. And that was just after reviewing their financial statements. So this is crazy. They're getting all this Medicaid, but it's the same building. So they can say, well, yeah, we don't get money for abortions. Yeah, but the same people that you're paying and the same instruments and the same equipment and all the other medical items that you're using for those services, you're also using those to provide abortions. All right? And then they get this Title X. And so let's talk about Medicaid. How can you fix that? Well, it is statutory. Not a single vote is cast on an annual basis by a member of Congress to fund Medicaid. That is mandatory spending, just like Social Security, Medicare, a host of welfare programs, and debt interest. It's 70% of total federal spending. No votes are cast, ever. A member of Congress, think about that, a member of Congress doesn't even get to vote on 70% of federal outlays. They only vote on discretionary spending. That's 30%. 2/3 of that is the Department of Defense. The rest of it, which is 10% of total federal spending, is what they vote on along with defense in either a continuing resolution that just says keep it the same amount we spent last time we appropriated, or they'll adjust it, in which case they pass an omnibus bill. That's what it's called. So I know it's getting into the weeds a little bit, and I apologize for this, but the bottom line is that which they do vote on, which are these omnibus bills and continuing resolutions, yes, they do include Title X. Donald Trump, he must have read my op-ed, right? So because in 2000, after he was elected in 2017, he issued an executive order. You guys may remember this when he said, hey, if you're getting Title X money for family planning, you can't counsel abortions as part of that counseling. You can't suggest abortions as part of that family planning counseling. And Planned Parenthood, the gnashing of teeth, the wailing was off the charts. Oh, my God, we're going to lose our Title X. And they exited the program. The rules, however, did not get promulgated until the 2019 appropriation. So for 2018, they still did take Title X money, and they could counsel abortions. 17, you remember, was already done in the prior administration. That carries over because the year end is September. And then for the next 2 years, they were out of the program. Joe Biden gets elected. First thing he does is he reinstates the Title X counseling for abortion. So you could vote against the omnibus and the continuing resolution, but then you would shut down government. A lot of people say, well, that'd be fine. We'll come back after the break and finish. Well, we got a few minutes left. I wanted just to finish up this conversation. I apologize for getting into the weeds about Planned Parenthood, but it's just complicated, unfortunately. So Title X is part of the omnibus appropriation bill or the continuing resolution, depending on which way Congress goes. That's what funds discretionary spending. Unfortunately, when President Biden took office, he reversed President Trump's order, which went into effect in 2019, which disallowed any organization receiving Title X funding from counseling abortions as an option in family planning matters. So let's talk about Michael Guest's record, because somebody said you didn't answer the question. All right, so let me answer the question. Let me get to where I was going, which is in 2017 when he was seated, the 16 election. The budget's already in place then. So when you're seated as a new member of Congress, or as the new Congress, I should say, at that point in January, the budget for the remainder of the year, which ends September 30th, the federal fiscal year, that was done by the prior Congress. All right, so let's go to 18. Trump had passed he'd signed the EO, but the rules didn't go into effect until 19. So for that year, Title X was included in the omnibus bill, and Planned Parenthood did participate in Title X. $60 million out of their $1.2 billion. And then in 19, when Trump's order went into effect, 20 and 21, Planned Parenthood was out. They got no money from Title X. They continue to participate in Medicaid because the courts had already said you can't block them from participating in Medicaid. And once again, a member of Congress does not vote annually for Medicaid, Social Security, and Medicare spending, or all the other statutory established welfare programs, or debt interest, which is now $400 billion a year. They don't vote on that. It just happens. It's on autopilot. You want to change that? Need 60 votes in the Senate. You cannot touch it without 60 votes in the Senate unless the filibuster's killed. And you all know what happens then. Either party goes crazy. And we would all be in for if we did that and the Democrats were able to get that through, Washington, D.C. would come a state. The Voting Rights Act would go into effect.
Puerto Rico's a state
right,
now.
Go down the whole list. All right, so he did vote, did Michael Guest, for the 2022 discretionary budget, which did, of course, restore Planned Parenthood's participation in Title X. But here's the thing: you could vote against that, but you'd shut the military down potentially. You'd shut down. You would risk Social Security and Medicare payments going out, and because what you're doing is you're not cutting off the payments, you're defunding or not voting to allocate funding to the agencies that oversee and administer that. You can do it, but the Democrats got the votes. They're going to ultimately win unless you get enough Democrats to peel off and join you in opposing it. It's a problem. So what we need to do is get control again of the House so that we can vote accordingly, and we need to get control of the White House so that we can reinstate Trump's executive order to prohibit Planned Parenthood. And you could go right from participating in Title X. You could go to Planned Parenthood's site right now, and you could find the press releases, Will, where they're crying because they're getting eliminated and then celebrating when Biden puts them back in. So once again, there's no budgetary line item that says Planned Parenthood. Does not exist. Totally false. There's also lots of other abortion providers and family planning centers that receive Title X money that aren't listed in the budget by name. They get Title X grants. Medicaid's totally different deal. Can't touch it without 60 votes. Long, complex discussion. Apologize for that, but again, need to know the truth. Need to know the facts. If you see something wrong in my discussion, let